For the last year or so, BORDA has started moving. We are working. We do a lot of work in water and sanitation, from a decentralized solutions, from a nature-based solutions, and from a circular economy perspective. How do you treat and reuse water, for example? We say that water is one of the two dangerous single-use resources we have, right? We've got plastic and water. We have started looking more holistically at small towns. And one thing that strikes us about small towns in India and even big cities is that there is really no focus on conserving and preserving green spaces. The other thing that we've been getting interested in is our food security and urban agriculture.
I think what I want to start by talking about, and this is a beautiful picture from Bangalore. This is one of my favorite, pictures. It's heritage rain trees, and it encapsulates a lot of the city for me. This is the kind of Indian city we need. A bit wild, a bit messy, where nature is an integral part of it, where the peri-urban and the urban can connect, and where you want nature and you understand its importance, but you don't seek the need to control it very desperately.
Although we are doing large-scale farming in India, what is missing is basically technology to use less water, do it in large scale, and try to bring the taste and nutrition element, which was missing. We had a 3-acre land. We started doing this entire hydroponic setup there, so that from harvest to on the table, it will be less than 6 hours. No? You just harvest, and people should be able to buy, and that freshest produce is available. That is what I call it in urban agriculture. I don't have to go remote places to grow the food, because today, when you say urban agriculture, the meaning is, you're trying to cut the carbon footprint. You want to increase the nutrition content, because today your food is traveling almost 100 to 200 kilometers every day before it comes to your plate. We need to talk about urban agriculture in that sense. Can we really do this in city? Is it possible? What is the technology required, and what is the manpower required, and it's feasible? And that's what I think we're talking about urban agriculture. It actually helps in multiple ways. It gives the local employment. It gives the elder people around. They can just go there, spend their time there on the farm, and it also creates the entire ecosystem. I think that's where urban agriculture is very important in terms of, especially in Indian context, when the entire food system is actually broken.
There is no doubt that cities are really, unsustainable where they are, because they get food and water and energy from such long distances and send waste so far away. So to me, we need some way of growing at least a majority of, maybe even if not our cereals, at least our vegetables and fruits close by. And we probably, I think, need a mix, whatever that mix is and what kinds of technology, but something that is large scale along with a lot of micro scale approaches. So I don't think it's so much, should we go in this direction or should we go in that direction? But I think we should go in multiple directions with great caution. On the micro scale front, which is where my research more fits in, I think there's multiple things that go on in the city. Firstly, that you look at the poor at one end of the spectrum, people who live in slums. Typically, they've come from outside the city. They used to be farmers, or maybe one generation removed from active farming. They have extremely high levels of knowledge about how to grow plants, use of plants in varieties of ways. These people have the knowledge, you won't have place, right? And so there you need to figure out, be creative, so think innovatively. So though, again in slums, can you help them do rooftop gardening on their tin sheet? Can you find some things that you can give them, or help them plant? There was a program in Bangalore in the 80s where they planted drumstick across. Now drumstick we now know as a superfood. It will grow in any small micro area, right? It doesn't need much. The roots don't interfere in too many places. It gives you food through the year. Leaves at least, even if you don't get the pods, right? So it's some kind of nutrients. So that's, I think, for these kinds of places, can you clean up the sides of lakes? Many of them used to forage, as Uday was also saying, on the side of the creek or rivers in Pune, on the sides of any water bodies. Wetlands were the place you got food for your cattle and goats, and you got food for yourself. Now they're scared to do that because they say it's filthy. There's people's sewage flowing in here. How can we use this? Can you clean that up so that I think is one different focus. And there's a whole issue here about equity and access to these produce, which these large scale ventures will not solve. On the other end of the scale, also, I think you need micro scale, because for people, wealthier people or even middle class people who buy your produce from the market, The problem is we don't know how to think about sustainability because we have not worked with our hands. There's something at the end to the psychological effect of eating something that you grow, even if it's enough to maybe supply you with vegetables enough for 1 or 2 days in the month, because then you look at the quality of your soil. You buy red soil from the local gardener, you will see plastic there. Or you compose something and you see some other plastic. Then you start thinking about solid waste. Then you start thinking about, so there's so many interconnections. So that mental transformation will only happen if you yourself engage with some kind of agriculture. And so I think we need to be working at those two spectrums in addition to this some kind of at scale agriculture.
Right.
When I say the economics, we always say that such projects, to make it viable, we talk about the capital output ratio. If I put $1.5 of investment, I should be able to get $1 as a margin from there. So that's the capital output ratio we're looking at such a large farm, and it's really feasible in India. Only thing which matters is the market. At a larger scale, I think that market is still niche and small.
There's so many other economies of scale that we're not thinking about. For instance, anganwadis. The biggest problem that you'll find in most of these places is the anganwadis have malnourished kids in cities. That's definitely true for many of the anganwadis in Bangalore, because calories are taken care of by the government. In government schools, it's often not so bad because again, there's people cooking on site and things like that, or there is some tie up with aid organization that provides you home cooked meals. But the catch is it's those really little kids who really at the stage at which malnutrition makes a lifelong impact. And you see very stunted kids, because the caretakers are few. It's two people taking care of 30, 40 kids, and it's all migrant workers, because anybody local would not leave a child in an anganwadi even if they work, because you'll have a grandmother and aunt, some caretaker at home, right? So these are really the migrant workers that come in. And the caretakers don't have any time except to take that whatever instant mixer they have and add hot water. If every anganwadi could grow in their rooftop some food, or even have just a drumstick plant that there are other trees that are permanent that you can grow.
Yeah.
Or let's say every construction site was mandated to have, as part of their capex expenditure, a gardener on site or a few gardeners, and that gives you employment, like you're supposed to have a creche, at least the large scale construction workers, and then those people could pick those greens and get them at cheaper prices.
Some of the disasters we have seen, right? We came up with this idea that GDP should measure economic GDP does measure economic activity, but that should be some measure of success. And it's terrible because you can do all these things which are good for GDP and horrible for society. And similarly, calories became this, and all these came up in these wartime eras. GDP was started, discounted in the Great Depression just to know what's happening with income, and then it became this norm for how we make all kinds of important decisions. I think the idea of calories also came up in more or less famine or wartime conditions. You see, are you getting some basic amount of stuff into you? And now we just talk like calories is all that food is about, and you can get calories from your rice and meat, which doesn't do anything for you nutritionally. So we need to really change the way we think about health and nutrition.
I think we just really need more informed conversations like this between different types of people doing different types of things. So I think that it's a great, not just this session, but I've been looking at this entire 2-day series of events. There's a lot of thought that has gone into this, and I hope that it continues and sustains and grows into a larger scale.